Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Daz Dee TV. And in this episode we're going to be looking at some of my favourite speed drills. So to get us into the show, I want to really start by just talking to you about the APA training method as it relates to speed. Now, one thing I will say is that if you take the time to study this training method and perhaps other ones, for example, I'd highly recommend you look at Lee Taft and his complete speed training method, and also Parisi's Speed School and their training system. You'll find that there's not a huge deal of difference in the drills that we use to improve someone's speed. I think we found a certain number of drills that just tend to work, and we're all using them. But what you might notice is that we tend to put the drills in a slightly different order depending on our own preferences. So I have a preference, I've got a training method that works for me. You're welcome to have a look at it and just think about how you might do it yourself. For me personally, I have 6 different components which give me a sense of progression. So I want to go from the most basic skill development drill to the most demanding. So for me, the first point where I want to start is static drills. So really what that means is that you're learning the posture of the movement where you're not actually having to overcome your own body mass and produce force because you're stationary. But you're just starting to learn the look of that movement pattern with the least amount of stress on your body. Once we've got the basic postures and we've learned the look of the movement pattern, we test it under more dynamic conditions. So it's still at the skill development phase, you're still learning how to perform the actual movement pattern correctly, but you're testing it a little bit further. And then at this stage here, I like to test the movement pattern and test it by making it more complex. So I will look at combinations of movement patterns. So now I will ask the athlete to perform that movement as part of a sequence of several movement patterns. I'll also then randomize it. So what that means is that I'll make it reactive. They'll have to perform that movement in response to some kind of unpredictable stimulus, so that they have less time to organize themselves. And then at the bottom end of the journey, I'll look to first of all intensify the movement. So usually that means overloading it with some kind of strength and power related stimulus where they're going to have to really work hard to overcome their own body mass. And then the last phase is accumulation, which basically means I'm looking to test that movement pattern under fatigue. So as I said at the beginning of the video, you might find that different coaches will bring in these different components of their method in a different order. Some people might leave the randomization aspect, that reactivity component, right to the end. Others you might find will bring in the intensification much sooner for their own reasons. So just take it with a pinch of salt and think about what works best for you. But this works for me, and it's something that I like to share with my team to make them have a consistent approach to developing speed. And then what I will just say quickly is I'd like to give you a quick example of a few drills that I might use for straight ahead speed and explain why I do them in this way, and then a couple for first step speed as well. And then that will just give you a flavour of how this training system is coming together. So with straight ahead speed, what you'll notice is these 6 categories, rather than just calling it number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what I've done is I've grouped it into what I call basic 1, 2, 3, and then advanced 1, 2, 3. And that's just something that I do to highlight to the coaches and to the athletes that I work with that, you know, there is a certain number of drills that we can do at the basic level of training where you don't necessarily need to have a great training history. But then when we start getting to the advanced drills, you really need to be fully competent in the movement pattern and have got a significant training history, at least to be doing those drills as the main focus of your session. It doesn't mean that you won't do 1 or 2 of those drills from lower down in anyone's program, even a beginner, but it just wouldn't be the focus. So quick example, straight ahead speed, we're talking about the acceleration phase. We're not interested in top speed, we're talking about acceleration. So a little sequence that I might do to develop someone's ability to accelerate. Basic 1, the drills that I would do stationary would be wall drills, and also while they're stationary, arm drills. What I would do then at basic 2, we're still teaching the skill aspect of the drill, but we're developing it further by using dynamic movement. So an example of some acceleration drills that I would do there would be a falling start. So you're using your body's own inertia, and the forward leaning is giving you that momentum, so it's easier to overcome your inertia because you're already in motion. And progression to that would be where you actually take away that momentum and you get them to perform the actual acceleration from stationary position. But whereas the wall drills, you're supporting your body weight, so you're not really accelerating anywhere, you're just stationary. When you actually do the power acceleration, you're actually moving, so it's much more difficult. Then once we've got the basic skill, at basic 3, that's where I look to kind of add in the complexity. So an example that I'd use for acceleration would be a rolling start. So now you're linking that acceleration to another type of movement. So in this case, it's a jogging type movement, and then bang, you've got to accelerate. Yeah. And then another way that you could do to complexify the movement is to add decision making. So at basic 3, the other thing I do is use that randomization aspect, and we do something called catch me if you can, where you've got 2 athletes, and then the person at the back, when they say go, they get up and they have to try and tap the shoulder of the person at the front. So the person at the front is reacting to the person at the back and has to perform that acceleration movement in response to time pressure. And then we finally get into the advanced components. And so for advanced 1, which is the first stage of my more high level progressions, we look to overload that acceleration component by using predominantly a force overload. So we're going to ask that athlete now to produce a tremendous amount of force, and we do something like a heavy sled. So they have to push against a heavy sled. Then at advanced 2, we've got more of a power overload component. So now the emphasis is in using the body to get into that position and apply a lot of force in a very short space of time. And we might use something like a harness or a parachute. And then the final phase, down at the bottom, advanced 3, is where we're looking to endure that quality of acceleration. So now we might do repeated 20-meter sprints with just a walk back recovery. So we're looking to see if they can maintain the quality of that movement pattern even as they do multiple repetitions. Granted, it's not going to be under fatigue, but you are obviously accumulating more volume than just doing those short technique drills. And I would sort of say that the most important thing to bear in mind with this type of speed is you're going to get much longer arm actions on the backside in the running motion. It's going to be really coming right back here, because the longer you can get that arm action, the more time that you're going to have for your leg to extend and to drive back into the ground. It's one of the things that in my early career I was very, very strict to say to the kids, don't straighten your arm, keep it bent at 90, keep it bent at 90, and have this kind of action. And what I've now realised is that if you really are truly trying to put force into the ground and accelerate, you will want to do this naturally, straighten the arm at the back. Obviously I don't want it to be like this at the front, but you'll naturally find that they go from more of a 90 degree at the front, but then they really extend their arm back. And the reason they do that is smart. It's just to extend the time period in which they can apply force into the ground. So, watch out for that in your athletes too. If we look at first step speed, we can get through this a little bit quicker now because you're familiar with the training method and the progressions. Same exact type of process. So for the first step speed, remember now we're talking about accelerations over 5 meters, same as straight ahead speed, but now they can be in any direction. So forward, sideways, backwards, diagonal, and these are accelerations in response to a visual stimulus. So what you'll find is that the body position is going to be different. The head and the eyes are going to be looking straight ahead rather than down at the ground, and you're going to have more quick arm and leg movements because you're not going to have as much time to spend in contact with the ground. And if you are trying to differentiate between the technical model for straight ahead speed and first step speed, be clear on which one that you're working on, because if you're trying to do more first step speed type work in response to a visual stimulus, they're not going to model the same movements as they would when their head is down and they're focused purely just on push. So a little example, basic one, we'll start with some cone drills. So it's all about moving forwards and backwards and sideways around cones to imitate the movements that we want, but with little movement away from your start point. It's maybe just one step in each direction, so you get used to how to do that movement. When we get to basic 2, now more dynamic movement, so rather than taking 1 or 2 steps, we're going over 5 yards now, so we're really putting it together. Basic 3, we know we want to add in some combinations and some randomization, so we now, the drill that I like to do, my favourite drill for combinations movement, is the X drill, which means I'm in a central starting point and then I move off to the left or to the right on a diagonal forwards, or from my central start point I move backwards to the left or to the right diagonally, again over like no more than 5 yards. And again, to make that more reactive, rather than you doing it yourself in a set order, you just get the coach or your training partner to call out number 1, 2, 3 or 4, however you want to do it, so that now your first step is in reaction to the visual or the verbal cue. Then, as before, when we get to our advanced stage, the strength overload, rather than it being like a sled with straight ahead speed, I like to use a vest for first step speed. So they actually put like a 5 kilogram or so, maybe even up to 10 kilogram vest on them if they're a larger athlete. Then we get down to advanced 2, so it's more of a power overload, and again, rather than it being like a parachute or a harness, I like to use a bungee for first step speed. I think that really works really well. And then to finish, just like before, advanced 3, we're looking to develop some kind of accumulation of fatigue. So we'll get them to do those cone drills that they did at the beginning and variations of the other drills that we did in the basic 3 section, but we just now do it for time, so maybe for 30 seconds, so just to see if they can keep going and keep the movement quality for a little bit longer. So that's a little summary for you. Hopefully that's made sense. Just give you a flavour of a couple of the different types of speed. We could talk about multi-directional speed and sport-specific speed, but I won't. What I'll do is I'll put up a link on the blog, and you can pick up all the videos there. And if you're interested in finding out more about the other types of speed, you'll be able to get it on the blog. And just final little plug before I go. As I said to you, I'd highly recommend checking out some different training methods with respect to speed, because I do think it's an aspect of strength and conditioning that a lot of S&C coaches are not as good at. And for me, one of the things that I did, I went and checked out the Parisi Speed School training system. They have a really good DVD system where you can buy the DVDs, and here you've got your 40-yard dash training, and this one here is called Ultimate Speed Training, and between the two of them there's hours of decent content there. Again, as I talked about, I mentioned Lee Taft. This is just a quick copy of the PDF that goes along with the DVD, but if you check out Complete Speed Training, it's another product that I think is really good. And if you'll forgive me, quick little personal plug, I also have got an ebook out called Speed, Agility and Quickness Training for Sports Bible, and it's something you can get on the website, and it has a PDF and a ton of video clips like the ones you'll see in the blog, and a lot more. So I definitely encourage you to check out those stuff. And last little plug, if you haven't already thought about it and you're watching this live, I'm doing a speed workshop this Sunday, June the 4th, so come down to that. Again, check out the website where you can get the details, and you can book online. So that's it for today. Hope you have enjoyed that, and I will speak to you very soon. Take care.